this is what I get all the time. I couldn't. I had so many other things. Please, I got my pen. I got my paper. I got time. Tell me, what did you do yesterday?
Yes. Oh my God, dude, that is.
And
so...
they're like,
Tell me about your day.
Yeah.
Did you spend 45 minutes screwing around, looking at TikTok, going on Facebook, looking at your ex-girlfriend's Instagram posts? The number one answer to the question, how many ride-alongs did you do last month? Man, not enough as I should be, man. I know I should be.
That's the biggest answer.
I know I should be, man, but not enough as I should be.
That's code for I didn't do any.
Oh, man, it's been a while since I did the ride. And then we go like, okay, so how many did you do? They were like, I don't know, man, like maybe like 2. And the owner's there,
Which
he's
was
like,
code for
Sebastian,
none.
he didn't do none, man.
He didn't do any.
He's sitting on his ass doing none ride-alongs, man.
Here's the other part of this is you're gonna get, man, I was putting out fires all day long. And my thing is if you did your job, you wouldn't have any fucking fires to put out. Because here's the problem is that you're not setting the expectations with your people. You're not training your people. You're setting them up for all the fires that you have to put out.
Yeah,
so all the fires you put out, you set.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the RILLA Labs, where we try to bring the science of sales to your everyday life as a sales manager and as a salesperson. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of having a very good friend, Chuck Thokey, on the show. He is one of the best coaches when it comes to sales in the home improvement industry. Today, we're going to dig into Chuck's background. He was one of the top performing VPs of sales at Bath Fitter and Able Roof, where he got his chops as a sales trainer. He learned from some of the very best sales coaches in history, and he is the founder and CEO of Top Rep, which is one of the best sales coaching organizations that I have personally seen out there. And we're going to talk about a lot of good things. If you are a sales manager, which there's a lot of you watching, you will not want to miss this one, because we talk about the ideal day of a life in a top performing sales manager and what separates the very top of the top sales managers in the country from the rest. So you're going to want to watch this. So welcome to the show, Chuck.
Man, I'm glad to be here at the legendary RILLA Boys headquarters.
Yes, sir.
I mean, dude, I've never been to New York, man. This is awesome.
That's crazy, man. So I'm glad we could bring you to New York, man.
We're psyched to be here.
Yeah, there's not a lot of roofing happening here, so I wouldn't imagine why you would have to come here. I don't even know if the building, they don't even have roofs. They just put like some like paper, you know, it's always leaking.
Yeah. I think you can even walk on most of these roofs.
Yeah, it's crap. So, but yeah, man. So you came from Ohio?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. I saw you. We went out to one of these like German breweries, I think is where I saw you in Dayton.
Yeah.
And you were like so happy. I was like, yo, this is like lit. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. And you're like, this is all it is, man. This is the one spot.
You got to go to the bar.
To the one bar.
The bar.
It's not a bar, it's the bar in Dayton, Ohio. We had a lot of fun. And Chuck, there's a lot of people watching who are, sales coaches, sales managers, owners, and a lot of our customers in roofing, they know who you are. Yeah. And the people who know roofing world, anything roofing related, they know Chuck. But there's a lot of people who work outside of roofing who are RILLA customers. They work in other verticals, other home services. Why don't you tell the people watching who you are and why you are here and why it's, for me, so special to have you here? Why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, really, I guess a quick synopsis is yes. So I am a coach in the sales space, sales and sales leadership. The other part of this is that we also coach coaches. Mm-hmm. You know, we had someone call in the other day and they're like, hey, do you know such and such? I'm like, yeah, I'm his coach. Yeah. You know, and so, we work with a lot of different people when it comes to the sales industry itself. We are kind of the all-encompassing, but we stay in our lane. We're not. You're not going to come to us and we're going to help you, understand your accounting or any of that. We know where to send you, but for us, we're all-encompassing with sales, and that's kind of where we stay. And we do like to stay inside of that home services, whether it's roofing, HVAC, any of the exterior remodeling, interior remodeling. We do stay in our lane.
And I will say that, like, just your focus on sales. For people who don't know, Chuck was one of the first people who who found out about us in this industry, and the top rep events. That's kind of where we started finding our lane.
Yeah.
Because it's like super sales obsessed, super sales focused. And I will say, like, from all the events, we do like 150 shows a year now. And the top rep shows are always like, especially for salespeople, man, they are so fun. And if you haven't been to one, like, my God, they are so cool. Like, your entire sales team gets so much value out of it. It's a competition.
Yeah.
We say at RILLA, sales is a sport, and we literally got that from watching how you roll and how you treat them like sales athletes. Well, the word that you say is like, salespeople are lazy, but we are champions.
That's right.
And
That
so
is right.
there's such the best events that we go to are the top rep events, especially for salespeople. How did you get started with top rep? How did you find yourself here?
It was funny. So me and Jim Johnson, we worked together.
It was just in a podcast, the previous episode. Yeah.
And I get this phone call, not from Jim, but from a guy by the name of John Dye. He says, Chuck, you need your own show. And I'm starting to put this thing together, and I'm trying to figure out how can we make this thing different. I didn't want just another event. If you're in roofing, there's no shortage of events.
Yeah.
It's almost like a joke. When you put up another roofing, show, it's like, oh, here's another one.
There's RoofCon, IRE, Win the Storm. There's all the little.
It never stops.
Yeah.
So me and Jim get together and we make top rep. And
When was that?
This was back in 2021.
Okay. So
Yeah.
right after COVID.
Right after COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. And which is scary in itself.
So we went to the second year that you guys were running these.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty amazing because when we first started, it was just supposed to be one event. We're going to try this thing out. Well, it sold out very quickly.
Yeah.
And it was a huge success. It was right there in New Braunfels, Texas.
Yeah.
Huge success. And while people were walking out talking about how it's life-changing, and me and Jim kind of got together. I was like, let's make this a thing. Well, it has gotten so big because
You guys are doing like 4 shows a year now?
we were doing 4 to 5. Now we've gotten down to 2.
Okay.
Because it's a full-time job just to put one on.
Yeah, you're like Bob Iger, Disney CEO. We're like, we're going to do 2 blockbuster movies a year. We're
it.
going to cut out all this crap.
That is it. I actually thought about just doing one because it really takes your attention away from everything else because there's so much that goes into these. It's not just, hey, let's have a convention, because it's not a convention.
Yeah.
This is an experience, and we have to provide that experience. Not only that, is most people that come to it have already been, so we need to create a different experience.
And you need to keep the competition feeling alive. You have to keep it funky. You have to keep it new. And I mean, we did the yacht party that you came to, and me and Will's sitting right there. We were not having fun at all. We were just like freaking out. We're like, please, I don't want a roofer to fall off the boat.
Yes.
We cannot have a dead roofer on the RILLA yacht, please. And I kept an eye on Luke Gustafsson, who's the COO of Blue Cardinal. Hi, Luke. Because he's wild and he was just partying. And I'm like, please, Luke, don't die. So I can imagine for you, you're like, when you're doing these shows, everybody's having like so much fun, but you're just in the zone planning everything probably.
We are. And usually by the second day, both of us are zombies. We can't speak.
Yeah.
You're
standing up the whole time.
We're standing up. Our legs are killing
walking
us.
around.
I always have GAF that wants me to fly straight from top rep to speak at an event. I'm like, I have no voice.
Yeah. So you're doing one show, and for people who haven't been to a top rep event, it's not just a conference like you said. It's not just like, oh, you're gonna walk around. I mean, we as vendors, we go to it. I literally just become zoned into the show. Like I'm like walking around doing my thing, but at these shows, I literally listen because it turns into a competition. It's like you're going to the sales Olympics, and the best of the best throughout the whole country. They're competing with each other. It's a great time for anybody in sales to, if you're the top performer at your organization, going to the top rep events, it might show you that you might be like a big fish in a small pond, because you see people that are even better than you from completely different areas in the country, maybe different industries. And it's such a great time to see salespeople coming together with this, like, it's super competitive, but at the same time friendly, and that the fact that owners are willing to share and learn from each other, that's like, even competitors from like similar markets come in here and try to level up their game. So it's a great time. So you met Jim.
Yep.
So walk me back. So the origins of Chuck Thokey. I know you worked at, I think it was Window Nation. Is that where you worked? Or no,
I was at, well, I went to Bath Fitter was my first
Bath Fitter.
home services position. Yeah.
Because you knew Aaron Magden.
So I knew him through Caleb at Destination Motivation.
Okay. Because I knew when Window Nation was one of our first customers, and he was.
But I know Aaron and Harley very well.
I thought you were a sales manager there, maybe. So walk me back to your origin. Like literally, how did you get your start in sales? How did you become a coach, and how do you find yourself here be the coach of the roofing industry and the general home improvement industry?
Goonies back in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So it really has to start back in school.
Okay.
So I was not, when people say, oh, Chuck was an aerospace engineer, you had to have been Doogie Howser. And I'm like, actually, I was the opposite. I was put in the small classes. I was putting tongue depressors in kids' mouths when they had epileptic seizures. That's the room I was in.
Oh, Jesus.
And then I had the opportunity to go tour this JVS type facility where you can leave high school and go have a trade. And I've always been told, when during school, you don't go there. That's where all the bad kids go.
Yeah.
Well, I went and toured the school. We had to because we were in class to do it. And there was this engineering program. And they said it's for gifted kids, that you get to go here, then you get 2 years in school. And I says, that's what I want to do. And I got back.
You're an engineer?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I was an aerospace engineer, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Aerospace is like the people who build rockets.
Well, we built planes, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, long story short, I came back. I said, that's what I want to do. And they're like, that's for gifted kids. And you're in like learning disabled classes. You're kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
You get to go and ask if you can get fries with that.
Yeah.
And so I took the test. It took me the whole 2 hours to take this test. My dad was asleep when I got back out to the car to go home. But I passed, got in, and I still graduated in the half that made the top half possible, but I graduated and got into aerospace, and we were just stringing wires. But here's where it all happened was when I was in Wichita, Kansas, and we were stringing wires. I said, I want to be over there in functional tests. That's where it's like you're playing video games with the jets.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, we'll give you a shot. And it turns out I was pretty good at it. Not only that is I had to write everything down. I mean, I'm like 10-second time. If it doesn't happen right now, I don't even remember what happened. And so I have to write everything down. So anytime I fixed something, I wrote it down in this book. And I was fixing things 2 to 3 times faster than anybody else. And then I finally went to my boss at the time. I said, can I get the next 3 aircraft? And he goes, yeah. I says, and I want the people on my team, I want to be able to pick him. He goes, fine with me. And so it usually takes, when they're building an aircraft, the fuselage goes up to one side, it turns, and then you put the wings on it, and then it comes back out. And once it goes out the hangar, it goes into a thing called flight. So they actually put it in the air. But it usually takes 3 months to get from the back of the hangar to the front of the hangar. And so I had 3 aircraft. I got all 3 out in 3 weeks. And the Jim, the president, he comes up, and I was like, man, when they want to let you go, they bring in the big guns. And he says, hey, you saved us over $30 million. I said, can I have half of that?
They're like, no. You get a pat on the back, Chuck. Thank you.
So they offered me a position in engineering and took it. And so as of today, at that point, I was up in engineering and climbing that ladder.
How did you go from being an aerospace engineer building aircraft?
Yeah.
I'm literally thinking like a different version of the Formula One like mechanics who are like putting the tires in them. You're like getting planes out there fast, like go. And so how do you go from that to sales? That is very interesting.
So that's the $1 million question, really. And so 9/11 happened. Nobody's buying aircraft. And so a lot of the engineers, a lot of the people there had to go find other jobs. And so I came back home and couldn't really find much.
Were you in Kansas at the time?
No, well, I was in Kansas there.
Yeah.
And then, back in Ohio. I had to move back to Ohio. But I went from there to Raytheon and finally, because I was on the cover of just about every aerospace magazine. I was the youngest aerospace engineer in the country. And so any of these places would bring me in, but they kept laying us all off. So, we were like, we just need to go home. So I went back to Ohio. And here's the funny part is I couldn't find anything back in Ohio. So I had to put something on my resume because everybody kept saying you're too qualified, you're overqualified.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go work in this place called Power Logistics. It's overnight. I just needed something so during the day I could build my life back up during this time that everybody's laid off. But at night I put on an Eskimo suit and drove meat around inside of this factory, and But to get the job, I had to alter my resume. They thought I was the janitor of Learjet.
Oh, crap.
And so
you had to dumb yourself down.
I had to get that job so that I could pay, I could pay rent and everything else until I built myself back up.
That is, how old were you at the time?
Gosh, how old was I? That was 22. Yeah, 22.
You were already 22 and you had done all, because you started from high school. I
was an engineer by the time I was 19.
Yeah. Wow. And so then that is so crazy. Like how many leaders I meet that they got their start young. You're literally seeing like the whole career of a man compressed down into like 5 years, because you just like go to the highest of highs in the cover magazines, and now I have to pretend I'm a janitor because I have to drive meat around.
Yeah.
And so so you're working at Power Logistics, it was called. You're driving meat around.
Yeah.
And so like I don't imagine you're getting to do a lot of customer facing interactions.
No, you're taking it to the semi, dropping it off, and going to get your next order.
Yeah, I don't imagine Rick Grosso saw you driving the meat truck and I was like, this guy's gonna make it in sales. So how does that?
So I got into insurance sales.
How?
And I saw the ad.
So you were tired of driving meat around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I sold insurance during the day and, drove meat around at night.
Was it over the phone?
And a lot of it was, it was health and life insurance that I would sell, and quickly became the top in the industry there. It wasn't hard. It was just boring as all get out. I will never sell insurance again.
Yep.
It was probably the most boring thing I've ever done.
What company was it?
It was called Mega Life and Health. I was selling sick insurance. I didn't know what I was selling.
Yeah.
I was selling insurance for sick people to healthy people, really, is what I found out.
Yeah. And you know who also got their start like that? It was Jeff, the owner of Houston Window Experts. He got his start really early on selling insurance over the phone. I think it was like MetLife or something like that.
Yeah.
And he learned everything. He learned about sales there. And then similar thing. It was like, what the hell am I selling? This is something.
Yeah.
It happens to a lot of salespeople when they realize, like, what am I doing with this thing? The words that I'm speaking. Why am I doing this? Yeah. So you started selling insurance. How long did you do that for?
I did that for, I would say, about a year, 2 years.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was probably, it seemed like 5 years. It was horrible.
And then what happened?
Then from there, I got the opportunity to get into mortgage. That was fun.
Okay.
It was fast paced. It was fun.
I'm thinking this was like before the crisis. So this was like in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
This is 2003, 2005.
It was right around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were in the height of the, of the craze.
I could finance your doghouse.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even need
You're like, approved.
I didn't even need to know how much you made, or even if you had a job.
Yeah. It's like, I always think about the movie The Big Short, where they have like the strippers with like 3 houses. They're like getting approved. So, okay. So you were selling houses to strippers, Chuck. Let's go back to the basics.
Let me tell you about this one.
So you did that and then I imagine you kept doing that until it all came crashing down.
Yeah, I got the phone call that from an economist saying, hey, you got to get out. And a friend of mine was, he owned a franchise of bath fitter. And he's like, hey, I want you to do exactly what you did with mortgage. But he didn't like how young I was. He kept kind of downplaying.
You were still in your 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. And came in and just like any organization that I have gone into, they didn't like me at first. You know,
Okay.
the sales reps didn't take to me at first, and they're at Bath Fitter, and
Why is that?
because I was the youngest guy there.
I see.
You know, everybody was older than me, more experienced than me. You know,
Yeah.
I'm coming from mortgage. I mean, what do I know about baths?
You probably had like a thing in your head of like, oh, dude, I was in the cover of the aerospace engineering magazines. Like, what the hell do you people know? Like, probably some swagger of like some of you and be like, who the hell is this?
It's humbling, that's
Young
for sure.
Chuck. Yo, Chuck, get the hell out of here, man.
When you're going through the interview and they're like, so how much do you know about bathrooms? And I'm like, I've got one.
It was like, I know about planes. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's probably easier than planes. That's cool.
But you know, we built Bath Fitter very strong, as you can see it
Yeah.
is today.
How big of a company was it back then?
You know, the franchises that I worked a lot with, they were right around like 3 or 4 million. They were closer to 10 million. And then that's just the franchises that I was in.
Right.
And then I did a lot of
Now
consulting.
Bath Fitter is one of the biggest companies in home
Over 2
remodeling.
billion, yeah.
Yeah. 2 billion? Oh, I did not know that. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they're big.
I didn't know that they were that big.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then is that where, because I've seen the top rep shows, you guys have a really structured kind of sales process. Is that where you started learning that kind of system, or was that later on, or is that like, did you incorporate some of your insurance sales background as well?
Well, there was a lot of that. I also that's right where I got into a lot of the mentorships.
Okay.
And I realized at that time that finding a mentor was one of the most important things you can do. There was a gentleman. His name's Frank Chicky Chop out in
Is that his actual
PA.
name?
Yes.
Frank Chicky Chop?
Yeah.
He sounds like a Grand Theft Auto character. Sorry,
I'm
Frank.
telling you, that dude is like
Frank Chicky Chop?
We used to call him the Italian stallion. He's a tall
Oh,
guy.
I know Frank. So
Yeah.
I didn't know you pronounced his name like that. He's the owner of Bat Saver.
Yes.
Yeah, I know Frank. Hi, Frank.
Yeah.
He's one of our first customers. You pronounce his name like that?
That's his name.
Chicky Chop.
Chicky Chop.
I think you're pronouncing it wrong. It might be me who's been pronounced. I used to say Chicky Chopo.
You're looking at it, you're like, oh, he's Italian. He must
He's
be pronouncing
Italian.
it.
Chicky Chopo. You're like Chicky Chopo. You're like Americanizing the Italian.
Unless
No.
everybody was making fun of him, and that's where they. But that's how we pronounced it.
I know
anyway.
Frank. Yes, I know Frank. So Frank was your first, because
He was one of my very first mentors
Got
in the
it.
business. Yeah.
okay.
He's hard to work for because he doesn't put up with anything.
Yeah, he's like super sharp. So he was
very
one of the
sharp.
first. Bath Saver, not Bath Fitter, Bath Saver was one of the first ever. So they were even before Window Nation. They started with us back in, I think it was like May or June 2022.
Yeah.
And Frank was the one who brought it in. And I could tell, because RILLA was all about like making you follow the process. And dude, he would get so mad when he would see the RILLA metrics, and people,
and when Frank
and
gets
people
mad,
weren't
the
following
walls
the
shake.
process. Yeah. And I could tell, like, he's like, oh my god, this guy's gonna love this product.
Yeah.
And we launched with Kitchen Saver, who's one of our great customers today, and those are all part of like the same kind of companies. And so so I know Frank very well. I'm like,
Yeah.
Dicky Job, who is that?
Yeah, I worked a lot with Larry over there, Aaron. Yeah.
I don't know if
Those
I
are the brothers, or those are the sons of Marty, who actually started Bath Fitter there.
Okay.
He didn't start Bath Fitter, but he started that.
So
franchise.
Frank was your first mentor.
He was one of my very first mentors in sales.
Okay, very cool.
When it comes to life-changing information, and he was tough.
Yeah.
And you realize what it takes to run a home services business. He was that person that you really wanted to watch.
Yeah, there's we've been growing in this industry, we've only been here for about 2.5 years, but one of the things I've realized is that these are really hard businesses to just operate. You have to be insanely good at marketing and sales. You have to be insanely good at operations. You have to be, some of the dispatching logistics of like sending people out into the home to do work. It's like there's a lot of complications in these businesses, and usually there's a lot of private equity coming into the space, And a lot of them haven't been successful at scaling the model. And I think part of the reason is that one of the foundational ingredients to make these businesses work is the leaders, the entrepreneurs themselves, who are just exceptional people, right? And I just think of some of the customers that we meet. It's like these guys and ladies, they just have all these variables in their head. They have it in their bones. They know, they just like smell the entire thing. They just know it. And Frank is one of those people where they're just like insanely great operators. And when you have like a private equity company come in and replace that, or the entrepreneur takes a step back, it doesn't work that often. You know what I mean? So so that's so cool that you got to meet Frank early on.
Yeah.
And what was the main thing that like top 3 things you learned from Frank back in the day?
One of the big things I learned from Frank is discipline. He didn't put up with anything.
Yeah.
If you were lazy, you were gone.
Yeah.
And everybody knew it. Everybody knew when Frank came to town that, I mean, you had to be on your game.
Yeah.
And I kept looking at him like, that's how you run a business like this. If you want to be as big as these companies are, discipline, accountability, you're going to work on your craft. And if you don't know your craft, you are gone.
Yeah.
Go work for somebody else and be undisciplined with them.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that I learned from him. The other thing is he knew it better than anybody else, and he didn't sell anymore, but he still knew it better than anybody else.
Yep.
When he came in, he's listening to you. What you didn't know if you were new is that he knew every word of that script.
He probably got to start selling it as well, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's typical.
Yeah, he was, and I don't know if he ever was, but we used to say he was one of the original 10 men because that's the way he operated.
Yeah. So when we launched RILLA with Bat Saver, Frank was the top like power user. Like he was going in there doing ride-alongs, telling them exactly what they were doing wrong because he just knew the entire thing.
Yeah. And
he was like getting mad at his own sales managers. He's like, why the hell am I the top power user here? Yeah. I'm the owner of this company. I'm doing you guys' job. And I was like, oh crap.
Something that I teach even today that I learned from Frank is you can treat your sales reps with kids' gloves because you're dealing with all these different personalities.
Yeah.
But don't you ever walk around a sales manager. If what I mean by walk around him, it means pander to him. Don't. If you feel like you have to treat a sales manager with kids' gloves, get rid of them. You chose the wrong manager.
Yeah.
You should be able to hit them right, and not physically, but right between the eyes with what you want to say.
I like how you're trying to not get canceled, like not physically. Be like, Chuck said I could punch you in the face, man. Chuck said.
You're the guy that said I'm supposed to punch my guy in the face.
Chuck leaves New York with a subpoena from a poor sales manager that got knocked out.
But it's the shortest distance from A to B is be direct.
Yeah.
Something that the owner of the bath fitters that I got a chance to work in, he always said, if you have the opportunity to be misunderstood, you will be. So get straight to the point. But that's, when it comes to Frank, I always go back to that training. And when I say training, I just watched him. I got the opportunity.
Was he the one doing the training with all the sales reps back then?
No, he was I like to say he was dad. He was the disciplinarian because when he came in and he thought that you didn't know what you were doing, you're not the one in trouble being the sales guy.
It's a sales manager. If he would see the sales team not doing the right things, he would like immediately turn his attention
in the office.
Yeah. Wow.
And he did it respectfully. It didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
But he did do it respectfully. He stayed okay.
How many years did you spend at Bath Fitter?
Gosh, I was there 6 years, maybe 5, 6 years.
That's a lot of good money, man.
Yeah,
you made back.
I got a lot of good training. I really got the true understanding. The other thing that I got while there was I read a book by it's Coaching Salespeople into Sales Champions. Even today, it's still my Bible for sales coaching. It's Keith Rosen.
Okay.
And I love this book so much. I researched the guy, found his phone number, and called, and he actually picked up. Today, he is not picking up. I mean, this guy is like he's the pinnacle of coaching. He works with like Discover Card, and I think he goes to Dubai half the time.
Okay.
So he's untouchable now, but back then, I mean, he started out in home services.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What did he do? What did he get his start on? What vertical?
I'm not sure, but when I talked to him, he's like, yeah, I did home services. I want to say he did some external remodeling.
Okay.
But when it comes to coaching, he is the godfather of coaching. And I had the opportunity to be coached by this guy personally for years.
It's turning salespeople into sales. I'm gonna order that
Coaching
book right
salespeople. Coaching salespeople into sales champions.
Keith Rosen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He
He
lives here in New York. Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna order this book right now.
Yeah.
And how did you? So then you talked to him that he like you called them like how did you called them from the yellow pages or whatever?
Well, I just called. I found the phone number for his company, and gave him a call, thinking I would just get some receptionist that was going to give me the runaround, and he actually answered the phone.
And it was him
Yeah.
because he was just getting his start back then as a coach, and he was doing coaching full time, I imagine.
Yeah.
And so then what? So you began a relationship with him, like.
Yeah, we still have a really good relationship. I don't talk to him as much as I used to, but he's a lot of the coaching. And then when I say, we're actual coaches, that's what I'm talking about is I got the opportunity to understand what actual coaching is. 95% of what people get is not coaching.
So tell me the difference between actual coaching and the 95% of crap.
So the
that people are getting.
95% of what people get today is what we like to say training. You get talked at. This person on the other end of the Zoom is talking at you 95% of the time. Where coaching, they're pulling it out of you. So if I'm going to coach you, and I do a little bit of both, depending on what you need, I do a little bit of both. But most of the time, I'm asking you questions when you're saying, hey, I need help with this. Well, let me ask you, what do you think the answer is? And you're like, well, I don't know. I'm asking you. I'm like, but if you did know, what would it be? Man, if I got asked that one time, it was 50 times I got asked that. But Chuck, if you did know, what would it be? And I gave him the answer. He goes, you got the answer.
Right.
And what he's doing is he's teaching you that you have all the answers. You're just not sure of yourself.
Right.
You want him to tell you because that's the answer.
Yeah.
You got the answers. Give me the answer so I can go be a millionaire,
Yeah.
And his thing is he says, look, I want to work with you for a short period of time, charge you a crazy amount of money, short period of time, and you never need to talk to me again.
Yeah.
If you're working with a trainer, you're addicted to this person because they're always giving you that drug, those answers.
It's like there's a chapter in the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's one of my favorite business books.
Chris is one of my coaches,
He basically talks about how he wanted to get a leadership position in the FBI, and he got the advice that he had to work on a suicide hotline. And that was like, he got that advice from a mentor. It's like, you need to work on a suicide hotline so you develop the chops of how to, because if you want to negotiate with these crazy people, like, so he's negotiating with terrorists essentially, like in hostage situations. That's what he wanted. Be like, okay, go get your chops and talk to people who are really in a bad place in their life and see how you do. And what he learned from that was exactly what you're saying, that a lot of the times he started out, he's a smart guy, very eloquent, very kind of persuasive. And he would start out kind of talking at people and convincing them why, suicide's a bad option. And people would say like, oh my God, you're so awesome. You're so right, man. Oh my God, it makes so much sense what you're saying. And his coach at the time told him, you're doing horrible. You are doing so hard, because he thought he was doing great because the people would give him the feedback. The people he was talking like, oh my God, I helped them. They feel so good. And it's like, no, they don't. They don't feel good about themselves. They feel good about you. You're showing them how awesome you are, and you're saying all these nice things. And the yeses that you're getting from them, those are very non-committal yeses.
Right.
You're not helping them see how they themselves are awesome and helping them convince themselves of it. You're just showing them how awesome you are. So that's kind of what I'm getting from, is like the difference between a trainer and a coach. Is the trainer, it's like, oh crap, inspirational. You're great. This trainer's awesome. I get a whiff of energy. Coach is like not about how great the coach is. It's about getting the players to realize how awesome they are.
Right.
Right. And you do, and the same thing Chris Voss was saying, it's like his coach told him, was like, you gotta walk them through and get them to see the answer themselves. That's and right. Not you tell them. And so then it became more about asking questions, open-ended questions, not just telling people what they needed to hear, but getting them to discover it on their own.
Right.
So that is so cool. So you learned that from Keith.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons when people say, Chuck, how do you make companies so successful so fast? And it's because it's all in them. They know it. And we're just pulling it out of them rather than sitting there giving them what they want, which is just information. We're actually pulling it out of them. And that's why the companies that come through Top Rep move so fast.
Yeah.
These companies, and we just did a big Facebook thing about the rescues that we do. We'll do about 4 or 5 rescues a year where companies
Like
that
the
are about to
companies
go
like-
bankrupt,
yep.
and those are exhausting. And we're going to talk with them. We want to know, do you have the chops? Do you have the drive to do this? Or are you going to quit halfway through this thing?
Yeah.
And we had one of my favorites. Actually, one of my very first was, and it wasn't so much a rescue; it was just very small, which was O'Leary.
O'Leary Roofing. They just sold to
Vertex,
Vertex Service Partners. Our boy, hey Raj, how you doing? So
Love Raj.
yeah, they and I remember they were one of our first ever customers because we saw them at the first Top Rep. I think it was like February or March 2022.
Yeah.
And they were one of the very early adopters. I remember all the people at O'Leary, they had to deal with all our crappy software.
If you can remember when they first started, they didn't want it. And I say the same thing to every one of our customers. I was just talking with TH yesterday because he's like, keep sending them. All week, that's all we've ever, all we did this week was sell RILLA.
Yeah.
But when we first started with O'Leary, no, everybody hated it because, oh my gosh, Big Brother's watching. That's what you want to do is you just want to follow us around.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let us record the customer.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest recordings. All I could hear was the sales rep, and I could just imagine what the customer was saying.
Yeah.
And then they found out how cool it was. And like, okay, let's start recording the customer now.
Yeah.
And then as of today, that's how they ride.
So when you were talking to Keith, how long did you spend talking to him and learning about him and just
So I worked with Keith professionally for about 1.5 years.
So you worked in his company? Is that what happened?
Worked with him. When I say I was coached by him.
I see.
So I never
see.
worked inside of Profit Builders. But he coached me for about 1.5 years. And then from there, him and I talk on the phone maybe once every couple
And
months
had you left Bat Fitter at that point when you started talking to Keith?
No, I was in
So
Bat
you were
Fitter.
still there getting coached from him. And so when did you decide, listen, I did what I had to do? Because you probably got promoted to sales manager or sales director or something like that.
I was the VP of sales from day one.
Yeah.
So I was brought in that
Oh,
way.
you were brought in as VP of sales?
Yeah.
As a 20-something-year-old?
Yeah.
Be like...
They took a huge risk.
So you were the punching bag all the time. Yeah. When things went wrong. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah. So you didn't. So you. That's why they didn't like you were saying that the salespeople didn't like you at first. Just like, who the hell is this young buck?
I had my kids are older than you. I had it all.
Yeah. And you were the boss of people who were. Yeah.
I had to let because it was like the friends and family plan there. You're either friends or family of the owner. And I had to let people go when he went on vacation. The joke was that he would never go on vacation again because I just let all his friends and family go when he was on vacation.
Yeah.
He says, all I get on my vacations are phone calls that you just fired everybody. And but you have people like Frank in your ear, like, how are you putting up with this shit?
Right.
And just screaming at you like you're only as good as your worst person.
Right.
And all of a sudden you start looking at your team. It's like he's got to go.
Right.
I'm better than that. If I'm better than that, he's got it. I mean,
when you were at Bat Fitter as VP of sales, how big did the operation get in terms of like revenue?
I mean, it got big.
We're talking like hundreds of millions or like.
Yeah. I mean, it got big. Now our franchises, and then I was part of others. I got a chance to consult and be a part of others, but our franchises, we got to about 10 because the thing with the franchising is you kind of get landlocked. Yeah,
you have a specific territory that you're given and you cannot go and compete. So there's only so much that you can grow because there's so many people in the town. Yeah. So when you basically spent there 6 years, 7 years, you kept growing. You were the VP of sales. You were really at the top of the food chain at this point.
Right.
You're like, turning 30 or whatever. you're at the top of the game. What makes you say, okay, let me
Well,
go back to driving meat meat around?
I was doing very, very well. We were growing fast. We were growing those franchises faster than they ever thought they could. And then I get this phone call, and it's a roofing company out of Columbus called Able Roof.
Okay,
Now,
they're still
and
around, right?
They're still the biggest.
Okay, yeah.
And biggest residentially. And so I get this phone call, and they're like, hey, we want you to do what you did with Bathfitter. We want you to come over here. So for about 6 months, they chased me down with a headhunter because I was happy. I loved Bathfitter. I still love all my team there. But yet they finally convinced me to come down for an interview, and I'm looking around. I'm like, this place is like Walmart. It's huge, massive. And I go in the interview. I thought the interview went well. And all of a sudden the founder, Steve Weil, he started to get almost hateful in the meeting. And I thought he was kind of Chet Holmes in me. Like if you've ever read that book, the Ultimate Sales Machine.
I haven't. No.
And it says in there, if you're going to interview a sales rep, you let them know, like, hey, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
I just don't see champion
To see if they push back, because the top performers will be. Yeah.
And that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, man, this guy's Chet Holmes in me. Let's go, man. So I have Tanny Crane, like the other Ohio billionaire. I've got the new president, the COO. I mean, we had the C-suite sitting there.
Yeah.
Because I was coming in as the regional director, and he started in, and I'm like, let's do this. And I
went in top rep mode. You went in sales champion mode.
I went head to head with him.
I see. It's so funny when you get up on stage, you turn into like a whole persona, man. Like people see you talking with your glasses, engineer background. You get up on stage, man, and it looks like the WWE, man. It's amazing. So you went that mode. So you started going at him. What happened?
I went at him. He got up and walked out. I'm like, no. He really doesn't like me. That was the first time, and the president at the time looks over at me and says, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. He says, that was the founder of the company, and I'm like, what did I just do? Which I didn't really mind. I mean, I had a great job. So if this didn't go well, I didn't really care. But I liked the company. I liked what they were doing. And so finally they called me in for a second interview.
You had a little bit of Stockholm syndrome there.
Yeah.
They're gonna abuse me here. I like it.
Yeah.
Learn from Frank.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so I came back in for a second interview about a month later. They called me back up and they're like, hey, we're watching what you're doing over there. We haven't seen anybody do this. And so came back in and finally got offered the position, came in and again, didn't like me. These are some of the best sales professionals in the country that were in this organization, some great sales managers.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was up against. And it was like Roadhouse, coming in and you're wondering if your tires are flat when you go out to your car.
Yeah.
But they made you earn the respect of the people there. It was not easy.
Yeah.
Almost quit.
For like
I actually called Bathfitter and said,
like,
hey, I'm coming back.
Take me the hell out of here, man. You made a bad choice.
They did the best thing that could have ever happened. They said no. We already filled that spot. Because I wasn't coming back as a sales rep. And so I'm like, all right, let's make the best of this thing. And turned it around. They were about 28% close rate when I got there. Within 6 months of me being there, I over 60%.
What did you do to change that?
I brought Frank Jicky Chop in that place. Accountability and discipline, letting them know that this is where it was going to be.
How do you institute accountability and discipline specifically, like with salespeople? Give me an example of the Frank methodology.
So you can't just go and announce that this is what's going to happen. And you really have to live it. And you have to bring a certain culture. So the sales manager is what brings a culture in an organization. I don't care what anybody says. I've had people like, Jeffrey Gitomer and these other guys, having dinner with these guys. I'm like, this is who. I'm like, you haven't been in an organization, obviously, for a long time. Because if you actually pay attention, sales sets the tone.
Right.
Nathan Thibodeau says it in his Hero Sales Culture.
Yeah.
Sales sets the tone for the entire organization. How you bring those jobs in. So when I was in this interview, the last one, I actually looked over at the production manager. I says, the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to mend the fences between sales and production. And he said, bullshit. I've never seen it. It's you and I are going to go toe to toe every single day. And his name's Scott Henderson. And I says, no, that's not going to happen. We are going to marry sales and production. And that's what we did.
Did you have him like sitting in sales meetings or something? Like, how did you do that?
He was sitting in sales meetings. He got involved. I got involved in production. I would protect my guys or gals. I mean, I protected my people, but to the point of if they did something, I was going to hold them accountable. And if you just came at them for no reason, I'm going to stand in front. I'm going to take the heat. But, you know, there was a respect between the two. We were no longer going to throw the grenades over the wall anymore.
Right.
And I remember the president of the company, president of Able, says, hey, if you can get Scott Baird to say that you've done a good job, this guy was one of the most negative people you've ever met. He worked in our supply house. And 2 days later, this guy, Scott Baird, comes in. He sticks his head in my office. He says, great job. And I'm like, you have no idea how happy I am that you just said that.
Huh.
You know, because that's exactly what we did.
What was it that the customers, like, you guys started selling better in such a way that cancellation rates dropped or something like that? Like, why would a supply person say it to the salesperson?
Well, because Scott was one of these people that he had his nose in everything. And he always heard stuff. He watched things, and from afar, he never really said much, but he was very negative. You know, but
look at this guy Chuck, man. What the hell does he know?
Exactly.
You should go back to driving me, man. Guy Chuck. Guy Chuck sucks.
But it wasn't just, hey, I'm going to take the sales team, I'm going to take them to a new level. I was wanting to take the organization. Now that was a big feat. There's 300 people there. So when people say, hey, you've taken it from like 60 to 220. There's 300 people that did that.
Right.
Not me. I just had my part in the sales. And like I said, you know, sales sets the tone. So I knew that I had big shoes to fill. And we worked little bit by little bit on certain things. And we got people's attention because it was no longer sales gets to do whatever they want. Sales just shoves it down our throat. And I was like, we need to change that first. That hero sales culture. And I haven't heard that at that time. I've never heard that, but we lived the hero sales culture.
And what's in the hero sales culture?
The hero sales culture is not expecting the kudos on the back, but knowing that that's our customer. We have the end customer, but our customer is production, and we have to give a good product to them. If I couldn't give a good product to them, that means that the end user was getting a bad product too.
Right.
Because everything, you know, garbage in, garbage out, right?
Right.
It's not just your CRM garbage in, it's the job itself. If you took a piece of garbage, which was your contract, and you shoved it through production and say, hey, just make sense of it, what else, what do you think's coming out the other end? It's garbage.
Right. So then the whole organization's aligned. You know, this thing that you're talking about, how sales sets the tone. I was reading Paul Graham, who's like one of the, you know, the masterminds of tech startups. He founded Y Combinator. He basically says startups or any high growth organization, like companies, startups equals growth. And when you're growing, that's great because you know, everybody in the organization, it's like this feeling of a company that's winning, right? You walk in and you can tell like when a company's growing and everybody's excited to come to work, and because you usually, for a lot of organizations, the growth comes from sales. Our organization, we grow from sales, right? Like if our salespeople don't perform, then we're all screwed, right? Similar to a lot of the home services companies. If the salespeople don't perform, the entire company is screwed. And so if there's alignment between the entire company and sales, like sales is the front line and they're going to help us grow. Because when the salespeople do their job well, everybody wins, right?
That's right.
Everybody. That's when you have opportunities for salespeople to become managers. That's when you have opportunities for production people to become leaders, right? Because the organization's growing. If the organization's not growing, then the pie is kind of limited, and it's like that's when people get bitter. That's when people start fighting these stupid political battles because they don't see that there's another. If the pie is like kind of set and it's not growing, it's kind of shrinking, then everybody starts fighting for the piece of the pie. If you have growth and it's like, oh wow, I can win, you can win, and that's all driven by sales, right? And so like some of the best operators out there, they understand that even in home services, right, in HVAC, plumbing, electrician, where it was more service focused, the best operators really put the needle on the sales, right? Because if they can apply pressure there, make the sales grow, then the entire company grows. Right. So that's like really important for all the operators. Like sales sets the tone of the company, right? So apply pressure there.
And I'm glad you mentioned the apply pressure, because this is one thing that is missing from a lot of organizations. And again, going back to Frank, apply the pressure, because nothing good has ever happened in this world. Nothing good has ever come of anything without pressure applied. Yeah. So you have to apply pressure to the people in your organization, not just sales, but everybody. I don't care if it's the person answering the phone, person emptying your waste box. How
do you do that effectively at scale?
You have to do it with respect first. And that's another misconception. If I'm going to apply pressure, I'm going to come down on you. It's like, no. You can apply pressure in such a way that respect is applied but understood. And when I'm going to apply pressure to my team, they know what is expected. So when we look at expectations, which is the first part of applying pressure to anybody, you can't apply pressure unless they know what's expected. You can sit there and yell at them, but if they don't know why you're yelling at them, then what's the point? So expectations all start with performance expectations, their administrative expectations, and their self-development expectations.
What is a self-development expectation?
So we actually teach leadership to people that aren't leaders. Now, here's the lovely part about teaching leadership to people that aren't leaders. If I have a whole sales team, like I have 25 sales reps just in my team, and then we had like 78 across the company, but we taught them how to be leaders, because if I can teach them how to be leaders, then they understand what I go through on a daily basis.
Right.
Not only that, is they're going out to be good stewards in the community, but most important, they understand what the leaders go through when they want to come up and beat on us, and why aren't you doing this, and why can't I do that, and you should be allowing me to do this. Now they understand what we go through because we teach them what we're doing.
That is so cool. Like teaching them, like even people who are not in positions of leadership, you teach them the skills of leadership so that they can kind of empathize and they can all be on the same page as to what the leader's going through.
Yeah.
I was just in a mastermind group, the Clover Mastermind, with some of the best home service operators. Paul Kelly was there from Parker & Sons. There were so many cool people. And one of the operators is really cool guy, young guy. He's like my age, and he runs like a 20-something million dollar shop in Massachusetts doing home services. One of the things that they do to get their technicians to buy into the process, one of the exercises that they do for their salespeople and technicians is they tell them, like, you have to write your business plan, right? And they tell them, the exercise is, imagine if you were to start your one-man shop and you're your own business owner and you have, and your truck belongs to you and this is your company. I want you to write a business plan about how you would operate your one truck shop, right? And they have to go through the whole exercise. And they have to look at all the tools that they need to buy. They have to look at the call center, like setting up the call center. They have to look at setting up the marketing, setting up the leads. They have to go through the whole thing. It's a whole exercise that everybody in the company has to do when they come in. And at the end, they realize, like, holy crap, there's a lot more that goes into this operation other than just me showing up to the house. And what it does, it's such an elegant solution, because what it does is it teaches the salesperson and the technician. First of all, technicians in home services, one of their biggest problems is that they sell with their own pocket, with their own wallet, right? So they're afraid of pitching the price of, like, pitching a replacement that's going to cost you $25,000, because they themselves have never bought anything that's like worth $25,000. So when they see, and then they feel like they're doing something wrong, like, oh my God, this is too expensive. Why am I charging so much for this? And then when they do the whole math of what it costs to run a business, to do your HR, to do your training, to do your call center, to do your marketing, to put the trucks out on the field, to prepare for incidents, right, that you have to account for, that goes into your cost. it helps them understand, oh, wow, there's all these things that go behind the price, and I understand that. And then the other thing that it does is it shows them how hard it is to build a business like that. And it makes them so grateful to be in a company. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to go and do that. At least here I have somebody that does all of this for me. It's taken care of. But now they understand the value, right? Of making them, and then they operate with the owner mentality, with the leader mentality. So
like that a
teaching
lot.
leadership skills to people who are not even in leadership positions.
It's
Did you get that
more
from Frank or from Keith?
No, that's just something that I learned myself.
Got it.
That's just, because when as a sales manager, people don't understand what we go through. If you're good, because
everything works.
yeah, I'm going to tell you,
It's seamless.
85% of sales managers suck
Why do they suck? What's the difference?
because they just don't know their job. They have no idea what they're supposed to actually do. They think that they're just there to manage the herd. I'm just there to work with my people and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm like, that's about 10% of your job.
Okay.
There's all this other stuff that goes into sales leadership, and but when you have a good sales leader, somebody that's not lazy, because there's a lot of smart, lazy ass sales managers out there.
Yeah. Just like there's a lot of lazy ass salespeople.
Oh my gosh, laziness is. I have not seen and I'm going to speak right into the camera because this is important. I've not seen a trade or an industry that is as lazy as home improvement because they get into it and nobody's watching.
Right.
You have an
There's
owner,
no accountability.
but he's got
and
all
it's-
this,
and-
or he or
and-
she has all this other stuff.
Yeah, and all the magic is happening outside of the office. So
Yeah.
it's not right there where there's accountability and stuff like that.
They're so small that you don't have all the middle management and all that stuff where everybody's being watched.
Right.
And then you get these larger organizations and people wonder, how do they grow so fast? Because you're always being watched.
Because
You're always
they
being,
just apply the pressure where it needs to be
continue
applied.
that pressure. Yeah.
So a question I wanted to ask you. So Chuck, like you work with a lot of sales managers. Obviously, you know who the good ones are, who the bad ones are.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm just like an average sales manager, that probably means I'm bad because if 85% of them are lazy and bad, that means the average is actually not good.
It's
so
not good.
The delta that they're applying to the business is either neutral or negative, right? Which happens with a lot of people, right? So if I'm an average sales manager, which means I'm not useful to my company, what is the ideal schedule, right? So like from the moment you wake up, so you go to work, you do some things at work, and then you stop working at some point, you go home, you go to sleep. What is the ideal schedule of a day in the life of a top performing sales manager? And how does that differ from a day in the life of an average sales manager who's not that useful?
There's some people out there say, oh, you get up, you go work out. That's the part I miss. I hate working out in the morning. But, you keep your mind right, keep your body right. Please don't look at it. But do as I say, not as I do, right? But
Do what I say, son.
But then you got to know your numbers. If there's one thing that a lot of sales managers miss is they have no idea. If I were to call them up, they wake them up, hey, so what's your close rate? Hold on a second, let me pull up my computer. Wrong answer. You should know your numbers.
Should be in your bones.
It should be, that's one of the first things that I look at and one of the last things I look at.
How much time are they spending like getting imbued with numbers in a day, would you say?
You should at least have a few hours of understanding your numbers.
So understanding the close rates, understanding the average tickets, digging in, what's the average revenue per lead, opportunity job average, whatever you want to call it. What's the speed to lead? Like all of these different things. Are they looking at only sales numbers, or are they looking at like other numbers for the business, like marketing? And then
really, more or less, it's their sales numbers, and then they're looking at how many opportunities came in.
Right.
Because they need to hold marketing accountable. That's
to,
the other thing.
Making sure that the pipeline's strong so that they can feed their salespeople.
Sales managers don't understand when I say, hey, your team, they think it's their sales team. I'm like, I'm not talking about your sales team.
You have two teams. Yeah.
Your team, which means the sales manager, the production manager, the marketing manager, and the phone manager.
So
that's your team.
Leaders have to understand that every time you have somebody in a position of leadership, you have two teams. You have your direct reports that you manage, who depend on you for coaching and training and feedback and leadership and all of the things that you have to do as a leader. And then you also have your second team, which is your peers, your other leaders in the other departments, so that you can work together. So if I understand what you're saying correctly, average sales managers are not even understanding that they have that second team. So they're not even spending any time, any thought process thinking about marketing or production, and they're not even building good relationships. Like one of the things that you were talking about when you came into Able Roofing was that you built that relationship with production because you understood. So the top performing sales managers, it's one of the first things they do is they try to build relationships with the other departments.
They have to.
Yeah.
You know, if all they're going to do is fight with the other managers, it's like saying, okay, this guy's the Celtics, this guy's the Bulls, this guy over here is the Knicks. They're all on separate teams.
Yeah.
So they're all fighting each other. They're competing against each other. I'm like, they're not even in your department and you're competing with them. That's stupid.
Yeah.
But the teams that work, everybody's part of the Bulls or whatever team that is, everybody's on that same team.
And
I'm throwing the ball, passing the ball.
That's one of the things that, like when I'm looking at, promoting people, like that's one of the skills that you need to become a director level from being a managerial level. Like you're just a sales manager. If you want to go up to director, the sales managers who understand that you're working within a larger team and that team is also, you're part of that, which is your peers, and then the people who you report to. That's the biggest difference that separates like somebody who can actually go from sales manager to director level, because the director level understands that and they're held accountable. The sales manager, I had a friend who runs a startup where his sales manager he thought he was great because his sales team loved him, right? And everybody was doing great in his sales team, but he kept getting complaints from the other departments about how annoying it is to work with this guy. And this guy never listens. He doesn't answer. We need feedback from him and he doesn't give it. He's very late. And he went to the CEO of the company saying he wanted a promotion for director level. The CEO says, "You're not ready at all for director level." And he's like, "Look at me, I'm crushing my numbers." And I'm like, look at all of your peers, your team, right, that you're held accountable to. They don't like working with you.
You're stepping on them half the time to get where you're at.
So that's not good. So if I put you on a director level, you're going to carry that with you. So in order to learn, you have to learn that art of leadership, which is collaboration. So
and a lot of the owners that I work with, I always get this phone call, "Hey, I'm gonna promote this guy," and it's their top guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Are you just hoping that you're going to clone him?
Yeah.
Or do you think that he's so good at sales that he can teach everybody else?
Yep.
And do they want to?
Yep.
You offer it to him, and now all of a sudden the salary looks good, and the fact that I get to go home at 5 looks good, and they jump over because it's for all the wrong reasons. They are promoted for all the wrong reasons, and So
then you're spending time on looking at your numbers a few hours a day, making sure that you understand all your numbers. You're spending time building relationships with other departments. What else goes into the daily life of a top performer?
So I'm getting my sales reps up. I want to be one of the first people, other than their wife and kids, I want to be one of the first people that they see in the morning.
Yeah.
So we, like right now, we didn't have it back then, but right now we're doing these Zooms from 7 to 8 in the morning. I'm getting them up out of bed.
Yeah.
This whole thing where I don't have an appointment till 10, so I'm going to wake up, around 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go run my appointment. That's BS. That should not happen. And if that's happening inside of your organization, it needs to stop.
There's no accountability for the sales manager. There's no accountability for the sales team.
We're getting them up. We're getting them moving. We're going to talk. And it's what we call power hour. And we have companies all over the United States doing power hour. And they're some of the fastest growing companies. There was one that was just interviewed by Roofing Contractor Magazine. The first thing he said is, well, one of the main reasons why we do growing hour so fast is we're doing
because you're setting the tone for the entire day, the entire organization. If you don't like, salespeople are mostly working on their own 90% of the time. They're out there on their own, doing their own job. So if you don't have like a centralized location where you can kind of like do the pep talk like a coach would do before a game, like what the hell are you doing? You're not even setting the tone like, hey guys, this is what we're gonna do. What do you talk about in Power Hour? Is it more like a hoorah, or are you talking about like specific things?
We're gonna go through what happened yesterday. We're gonna go through the schedule. We're gonna go down the schedule, find out what happened, who won, who learned. We never say who lost.
Yeah.
Who won, who learned. It has to be positive.
Right.
You're not yelling at anybody. You're not getting mad at anybody. You might pull some people in and say, hey, you're going to message them privately and say, hey, I want you to come in around 8.
Yeah.
You come in after this.
Yeah.
Which they know that
it's
probably not going to be a good call.
You screwed up, man.
Yeah. But I'm not going to do that.
I watched your RILLA and you did a horrible job.
That's right. But inside of that, so part of it is going to be what happened yesterday. So they're held accountable. And then the other part of it is, all right, this is what we have today. We're going to attack today. This is the plan for today. And this is what will happen today.
Yeah.
everybody has their expectations. Nobody in our organization, nobody's going to sit there and say, I just don't know what I'm going to do today. No, you were told what you will be doing today.
Everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, everybody, the whole sales team.
And this is an everyday thing, having that accountability, like it's literally like even organizations that already have a process in place. It's like the process is nothing if you don't have the follow through and the accountability and the daily to remind people of what the process is, of what it is that we're going to do, and constantly be pushing the needle. I mean, like I use RILLA all the time. Anytime we want to incorporate anything new into the process, I have to literally do like 50 ride-alongs just to remind my reps to implement it at the right time, at the right place, even if we already agreed that we were going to do it, right? Because there's the theory, and then there's like putting it in practice. And so I imagine that in Power Hour, we're talking about like reinforcing the habits that we want to see from our salespeople as well.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking. So you do Power Hour, you set the tone, super important. This reminds me of our one of the best training managers that I've seen ever. It's this awesome lady called Sylvia Nesteras. She's Argentinian, and she's lived an awesome life. She used to work for, it's either the United Nations or an affiliated organization, and she used to do field training with the people with the people in the field in all these countries all over the world.
Yeah.
And she finds herself training technicians now, plumbers, right? My Plumber Plus. And she literally, what you were talking about, she used to go into work at like 5 a.m., right? When she started going into, because she wanted to plan the day and stuff like that, when she started showing up at 5 a.m., then other people started showing up at 5 a.m. And so everybody, and then they would have their meetings super early in the morning before they would run their first call at 8 or 9, right? And because she set the tone. Like before it didn't happen. She came in, everybody started showing up early. Isn't that crazy how that happens, that the leader sets the tone? And it's so funny because I was talking to her and she told me like, I used to use my RILLA at 5 a.m., but now people come at 5 a.m., so I need to come at 4 a.m. to use my RILLA.
Yeah.
And she literally gets up at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, Sylvia, what are you doing? So it's super important. So you do the Power Hour. You're spending a few hours a day looking at your numbers and understanding them deeply. Why is this person not closing? Why is this person? And so you're spending some time there. Then you're spending time developing relationships with the other department. What else?
So what we do right after Power Hour is I have the underperformers come in. Now, I don't call them underperformers. I just say, hey, I need you. They all know it.
You don't have to say
I don't call them
nothing.
out in Power Hour. It's usually through text.
Yeah.
That I need them to come in. And the other guys are running calls. These people are coming in for training.
Yeah.
Remember this, is that when you think of the worst person in your organization, you're as good as they are.
Yep.
You're only as good as your worst person.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing these people in. They're not running appointments. They're training with me.
Right.
And then I'm going to let them go out and I'm going to monitor them, because I will not allow another sales rep to go out and come back with a 40% close rate.
Right.
For me, if I gave you leads, if I gave you appointments, I'm not asking for too much. I just want you to close half.
Yeah.
Is that too much to ask?
Yeah.
That you close half of them?
Yeah. And that's, by the way, people think you're kidding here when you're saying at least 50%. Some of the, like, we see a lot of organizations out there, their close rates are like at 20 and 30%, and they think they're rocking it. Places at Window Nation, you are fired. You're literally on a PIP. As soon as you go below 50%, put them on a PIP, right? Some of the best organizations in the country that's exactly how they're running. This is not just Chuck saying like, no, this is probably exactly how it was a bad fitter. It still is, right?
Yeah.
You are expected to provide a level of excellence to the customer so that you can actually perform in a high, and that's what the top people are doing. And people then wonder, who's like, how do these companies scale so fast? Because they applied that discipline and expected that excellence. So this brings up a really cool question for me, which I know people wonder all the time. You have underperformers, right? We don't call them that, but they know they are. And you know they are.
Yeah.
How do you make a decision as a coach of like, I'm going to spend time coaching these people up to par, or I'm going to let them go because they're not? How do you navigate that, right? How do you do that?
So you have to look at their performance. So you're gauging. We use this thing called key competency list. And we try to teach it. A lot of people use it right. Some people don't. but it's a list of everything that they must know to actually run appointments.
Right.
Everything that they have to know. They have to master everything on this list. And what I do is I monitor all the sales reps and where they're at on it. And if I have an underperformer, that's what we pull out, is find out what are they having issues with.
Right.
And I'm check marking the things that they need help with. Now here's when
And you're talking about the checklist of the things that they're supposed to do in their appointment, do the company story, do the pricing, do the financing, all of those things. Okay, got it.
And RILLA,
Yeah.
I wish I had it back then.
Yeah,
I keep
yeah.
telling you that I've been looking for this ever since I was at Able. But RILLA, I can go down through it, and from my chair.
Yeah, you
know,
can
I
literally
used to have
see
to ride with
what
them
it
to
is that
figure
you're.
out.
So you basically understand that this person has a closing rate problem. You go into RILLA and you figure out they have a closing rate problem because they're not doing the company story correctly. They're not pitching financing correctly. Or if they have an average ticket problem, it's maybe they're discounting too much. And you can literally see exactly what it is. So you identify the core root cause of the issue. Then what happens?
So then we're going to bring them in, we're going to retrain them, and then we're going to send them back out. And I'm looking at those things.
You're looking
Are
at
they
the
getting
inputs.
better?
You're not looking at the outputs yet. You're looking at the inputs. Are you actually doing the things that I told you we need to address in order so that you can see the outputs? So you start looking at that. Did you do your company story?
We're going to work with everything that they're having problems with, what they're not the best at.
Right.
And we're going to work with that. We're going to train and train and train. Then we're going to put them back out. If they're not any better,
Right.
they're gone.
If they ain't and how much time do you give them?
I give them one more shot.
Yeah,
You got to remember that a bad hire costs you $100,000.
That is correct.
So if I'm going to take them, and I will say I wear my heart on my sleeve. If I really like somebody, I'm going to really pound them and be like, you've got to figure this out.
And what you're looking is for the inputs at first. You're like, is this person actually, because they have to be coachable, right? They have to be coachable. And we had Coach Saban out at an event, Coach Nick Saban, and he told because they asked him this, like someone in the crowd asked him, it's like, how do you know whether you should coach or like let people go and be like, I learned a long time ago, I cannot coach a bad player to be good. And he talked about how a lot of his process was based on recruiting the best players and also the players who were very coachable. Because if you have somebody who's first underperforming, right? Underperforming, so they're not hitting their numbers.
Yeah.
And they're also not coachable because you gave them everything they needed. And you're coaching to the inputs. You're saying like, hey, let's do these things right the next time. And they're not doing it and you're monitoring closely. Then you have somebody who's underperforming is not coachable. Why the hell do you have them on the team?
That's right.
So let's say that they are underperforming. You identify an issue, let's say average ticket, because they're closing right, but their average ticket is way too low. So they're actually unprofitable for the company. And you go on RILLA and you see like the same problem happening in like 20 appointments, which is that he's discounting too much. He's talking about price too early. He's going in and out. The appointment time is too short for him to build any value. You address these things with them. And then let's say that you have three things: the time in the appointment, pitching price too early, not doing financing. Let's say that he starts doing one of those things really well in the next appointment, and he starts increasing the time at home, but he still doesn't know how do you treat that?
If I can find that they're working on something, I'm going to keep them.
Okay, got
If
it.
they're working on something, if I can find and really look at, you're working on this.
Yeah.
You're trying. I'm going to keep you.
Got it.
And I'm going to fight for you, because there's many times where I've got in my ear somebody above me saying, let them go.
Right, but
If
you're
you don't let 'em go, I'm
monitoring
gonna let 'em go, yeah.
but you're monitoring the inputs.
Yeah.
How did people do that before RILLA? By the way, how did you know that they were actually following?
You had to go actually
you had to
be in
go
the
in, yeah, I
right.
see.
You had to ride right next to them all day long,
Wow, so the
which we
ride
still do.
Yeah. The ride along is like you're about to get fired.
And they had no idea that I'm riding, because I would always let them know, like, hey man, I'm riding with you. I had a free day. I just want to be in the passenger seat. We're going to go have fun. I'm going to take you to lunch, take you to dinner. Let's go have some fun today.
How much time are the top performing sales managers spending doing ride-alongs?
They should be spending about 30 to 40% of their time doing ride-alongs. Still today, even if they're using RILLA, they still, because you can't see their facial expressions. You can't really see what's going on.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to what's going on the other side of that table, or are you just regurgitating everything that I taught you?
So 30 to 40% of their time, we're talking about 5 days a week. Let's say it's 5 working days. If it's 5 working days, you're spending like 2 days.
I'm going to be spending
one
about
or two days going out with the reps, making sure that they're following their process. So that's
here. I want to share this. Okay, so as a sales manager, this is what I get all the time. I had so many other things. Please, I got my pen. I got my paper. I got time. Tell me, what did you do yesterday?
Yes. Oh my God, dude. That is
And
so.
they're like,
Yeah.
well,
Tell me
and
about
I'm
your
like,
day.
yeah.
Did you spend 45 minutes screwing around, looking at TikTok, going on Facebook, looking at your ex-girlfriend's Instagram posts? Did you spend 45 minutes going out to lunch, man? What were you doing? And then that is so, like, we were talking about what separates the top sales managers versus like the just the average. You talk about how people are lazy. Dude, the number one, because we love talking about ride-alongs at RILLA. We talk about ride-alongs more than anybody. Dude, like the number of people, the number one answer to the question, how many ride-alongs did you do? It's just physical ride-alongs. How many ride-alongs did you do last month? Man, not enough as I should be, man. I know I
That's
should
the
be.
biggest answer.
I know I should be, man, but not enough
That's
as I
code
should be,
for I
man.
didn't do any.
I'm like, oh, man, it's been a while since I did the ride. And what's so funny in our demos, like sometimes we have the owners and the sales managers be like, hey, man, how often do you ride? Oh, shit, man, I'm not, you know me, man. I'm not busy, man. Yeah, like, I don't have time. And then we go like, okay. Because they say that. They go like, oh, not enough as I should be. So how many did you do? And you're like, I don't know, man, like maybe like 2. And the owner's there,
Which
he's
was
like,
code for none.
Sebastian, he didn't do none, man.
He didn't do any.
He's sitting on his ass doing none ride-alongs, man.
Here's the other part of this is you're going to get, man, I was putting out fires all day long. And my thing
like-
is if you did your job, you wouldn't have any fucking fires to put out. Because here's the problem is that you're not setting the expectations with your people. You're not training your people. You're setting them up for all the fires that you have to put out.
Yeah, it's
so
so-
all the fires you put out, you set.
Because they're not seeing what's happening out there. And that is really such a big difference, man. Because when we go on a demo and we ask people, how many ride-alongs did you do? Be like, oh, we have a really strict ride-along process. I go on ride-alongs 3 days out of the week. The first ride-along I do, I watch them. Then they watch me. Then I watch them again. And I have a whole scorecard system. This scorecard is tracked by the entire company. That there is such a big difference between the top performing sales managers because, like you mentioned, that's what you were talking about, the accountability piece. They're making sure that their processes are being followed. It's like, oh, yeah. So to compare that to a sales team, it's just like, oh, we have no morning meetings. You know, they do, you know, we have a process, but, you know, it's like potato. Everybody's got their own personality. Like, we let them running all the way through. No morning meeting, no ride-alongs. How do you expect, like, if you're, we just had I just met with a good friend. He's the CEO of a really large home service platform. They're here in New York. This really smart guy. He went to Harvard. He used to work at Activision. He knows who he is. So he was literally like he was the chief of staff for the CEO of Activision when they launched Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So he was like overseeing the whole thing.
didn't know that.
He's like a really, really cool guy. And he told me that one of the companies that they acquired, $20 million in revenue, $20 million in annual revenue, and the owner of this brand that they now acquired, they don't have a process. They don't have a sales process. And then and the owner of the platform is like, how? How do you not have a process? And the guy was like, you know, everybody's different. And it's like, and he's doing well, right? He's doing well because he's doing $20 million. It's impossible for an organization like that to improve. Impossible. Because people say like, oh, well, you like people are different. So like, they're just going to do it. So you're just relying on randomness, on luck and your people are doing something well on their own because you hired people, but you're never going to scale beyond that point because the way I think about a process is it's a hypothesis. You have a hypothesis as to what works and doesn't. So just having anything at the beginning is just this big separator from like the average company, just having any process.
Yeah.
And then as you go through, you start fine-tuning your hypothesis. You start tweaking it. It's just like, oh, this part of the process doesn't work as well. Let's take that out, right? You have tools like RILLA that you can kind of like see what parts of the process are working, but it's a hypothesis. And if you're a scientist doing an experiment and like you have a scientist with no hypothesis, it's like you don't even know what you're testing. You don't even know. And if you don't know what you're testing, when you fail, you don't know why. When you win, you don't know why. So if you don't know why, it's impossible to replicate it at scale. Yeah. And we were having that conversation. It's just like, just the simple things, having a process, doing ride-alongs to make sure the process followed, right? Forget about RILLA, just doing physical ride-alongs, right? 2 days out of the week. Big, like what you're saying, I see it on calls every day. It's like literally like only like 20% of people tell me that they have a ride along process structured. Most of the time, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't have time.
So if you're at 20 million and everybody kind of does their own thing, you can only imagine the chaos.
Yes.
And that you can't have sales meetings because everybody does something. What are you going to talk about?
How do you pick a topic?
Yeah, I'm going to pick a topic that I think he knows.
It's like imagine talking to a football coach and you ask them like, how do you run your play? Man, it's like they play it by ear. Like, like what?
Just go get open.
Like what? Like, and sure, you're doing fine, but how much better could you? Like, you have raw talent in your organization, so much so that you got to $20 million, right, of annual revenue. How much better could you be if you just implemented like basic kind of discipline, basic accountability, basic process.
And that's what we do is we actually bring those processes in, and then we watch these organizations blossom. Here's the other part of it is that we already knew that a majority of companies in the trades that are over 20 million don't make any money because a lot of it there's no profit there.
Yeah. They're
spending so much money. When people say that your top line number is vanity, your bottom line's for sanity. And so, but they're so focused on this top line number that our revenue is here, but nobody wants to see what's down here.
So I want to go back to a point. So like the time that people are spending on ride-alongs. So there's the bad. You're not doing any ride-alongs. You're just like not enough as I should.
Yeah.
Sylvia, the training manager that I mentioned, she does 435 ride-alongs with RILLA virtually. She, like, the first thing that she does, she spends about an hour to 2 hours a day. She does like almost like 30 ride-alongs a day, right? Like 20 to 30 every single day.
Mark taught her, didn't he?
What?
He's a trip.
So like it's crazy. I use RILLA. I do like between 200. I'm the owner of my company. I'm a CEO. I'm traveling, doing podcasts. I'm doing all these things. I take like 45 minutes to an hour a day. I do about 12 ride-alongs a day, and I do them every single day of the week. So I do them 7 days a week. I work like all the time, and I do like 250 to 300 ride-alongs every single month. That's a lot. Like that's imagine like you have a sales team of like 5 people. They're running 2 appointments a day, 5 days a week. You know what I mean? They're going to be doing 200 appointments a month.
Yeah.
If you could do this, you can ride along with every single person, understand what's happening. One of the biggest benefits for me is that me as a CEO, as an owner, I get to see I get to be so close to the front lines of my army, of my revenue growth. I literally not only get to train my salespeople, coach them, I get to see new partners that show up on calls. We ask people, where did you hear about us? I get to see new marketing channels that are working, that I actually see them to fruition. I get to see patterns in my sales meetings, in my sales that are happening, and I bring it up to sales meetings where I go like, guys, I'm seeing this pattern where we're all doing something, and I discovered this new tactic that can help us deal with this objection because I'm seeing it come. I remember one of the times I saw a call where we always talk about ride-alongs, and my rep JH, who you know, he was talking to a guy who said like, oh my God, when I do ride-alongs, it's amazing. I went out with this guy and he was closing at 30%. And then he was closing at 50% afterwards when I did ride-alongs for him for a month. And I was like, oh my God, that's so critical to our sales process. We should do ride-along math. We should look at ride-along efficiency. I brought it to sales training, be like, guys, when people do ride-alongs, ask them, how much better do your sales reps get? Because then we pitch RILLA as a way. But I would not have discovered that if I wasn't doing that. And then when you look at my sales numbers, right? My top performer, he closes at 42%, right? Net close rate, which in tech, the average is like 20, right? In technology sales. And my bottom performer is at 38, right? The average is at 40. So the difference between the top and the bottom is like this because they're getting coached by me and my sales manager every single day without skipping a beat. And they're right there in the office, right? Like we're all together. They're not outside. Like the level of accountability my guys have following my process. You look at my RILLA and it's like everybody's like hitting all the things that they need to hit. So like when we talk about the things that separate the best sales managers, the best sales leaders from the rest is that the best sales leaders know what's going on deeply. And it's a lot of the things we're talking about, like ride-alongs, you know what's going on in the field. You're talking to the production manager, you know what's going on in production, you know what's going on in marketing, you know what's going on with your numbers. You're just like so deeply, imbued with your entire organization. But anyways, I get excited talking about ride-alongs, man.
But it's very, very true though, that when you talk to a lot of these sales managers, they won't do it. They always have an excuse. There's
Yeah.
always fires. If you were to put a monitor on a lot of these sales managers, they come in and they wonder
Yeah.
what's going to happen today.
They-
What am I going to do today? And I'm
Yeah.
like, that is a problem. If you don't know what you're going to do today.
Is that the problem that you see with a lot of organizations, that they don't do this because, I mean, the way that you put it, you have ride-alongs as part of a larger workflow that involves you look at your numbers deeply, you do your power hour meetings, you bring your bottom reps who are not performing well, you do the ride-alongs to after the coaching to see that they're being accountable to decide if you fire them or not, or if you keep coaching and training them.
Yeah.
That's part of a workflow, right? That's not just like, let's go out and do ride-alongs, right? Do you see that the biggest obstacle for a lot of these contractors is that they don't even know how to incorporate it into their workflow? Is it that they don't even have the right, like, what's the big, or is it that they know it, but they're too lazy to implement it? Like what?
No, the biggest problem is they don't know it.
They don't know it. Yeah.
Until and I've said this many times, when I work with a sales leader and an owner says, hey, Chuck, we want you to come in, work with our sales leader. I says, hey, disclaimer, I've had a lot of sales leaders quit when I tell them what their actual job is. So be careful. I'm going to come in. I'm going to explain what their job is.
And that's what you mean by when they don't know what their job. They literally don't even
have
know
no
what they're supposed
idea.
to be doing. They're not even doing any of these things. They're not looking at numbers. What are they doing then? If they're not doing any of these things, what are they doing?
They're putting out the fires that they put in place.
So the reps
Because-
are calling them, I need your help, man. And so they're
Because
okay.
their sales reps aren't doing their job. They're out lying. They're out doing things they're not supposed to be doing because they're not being watched.
Right.
And because if the sales manager did his job, those fires would not be there.
They're getting calls from angry customers from production saying like, what the hell did you guys sell?
The worst fire that a sales manager should have to put out is underperformers.
Yeah.
That is the worst fire a sales manager should have to put out.
Yeah.
But if you're always dealing with customers because they're mad or because somebody priced something too low, or that's because of the sales manager. It has nothing to do with the sales rep.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it right to everybody. Has nothing to do with the sales rep because they were poorly trained.
Yeah.
They didn't have their expectations given by the sales leader because the sales leader didn't know.
And that's such an important topic, like, from the Frank School of Sales. Hey, Frank. Like, you as an owner, if you see your reps underperforming, immediately turning your focus on the sales manager, what the hell are you doing, man? How are you not keeping them accountable?
It really is. And when we bring sales leaders through our training process, it is so awesome to see the transformation.
Yeah.
Because either they leave because this isn't what I signed up for. I hear that all the time. Or they're like, wow, I didn't know that my job entailed all that. Now when they do their job, do it right, it becomes easy because they walk in, there isn't any fires to put out. They're looking at their underperformers. They're bringing them in, working with them and determining should they stay another day or should they be let go. Here's the other thing is when you let an underperformer go, you're doing them a favor.
Correct.
Because they shouldn't be here anyway.
Yeah.
You're keeping them from doing what they should be doing and what they're good at.
How how much time are the best sales leaders, sales managers spending recruiting? Because I imagine if you're going to keep your people accountable, you have to have like a bench warm of people that you can put in so that you're able to not fear to fire somebody because they're underperforming. How much of my time should I be spending as a
That
sales
is the
manager?
other talent that a sales manager must possess. And is understanding that I'm always recruiting. So on a daily basis, about 10 to 20%. I know some people, I know Frank's probably like, oh, come on, Chuck. But 10 to 20%, he's probably thinking 30 or 40. I know you are.
Yeah. 10 to 20% of the time,
of your day should be recruiting.
that's like an hour a day.
Yeah, because if you're recruiting 50 plus, that means you don't have enough sales reps. You're put into this desperation and you're just going to pull people in.
Right.
We used to, we would have people sent in to us and we knew the sales reps that were hired out of desperation and we knew the ones that were hired because they walked in as a champion.
Right, because from a position of strength and just even when things are going well, always keeping that. So you never. It's like I always hear this from some of our customers. It's like, oh, we can't fire them because a labor shortage. It's like, no, you can't fire them because. You can't fire them because you're scared, first of all. And second of all, it's not a labor shortage, it's a recruiting shortage because your organization is not spending enough time recruiting. And so you don't have enough people to replace because you didn't spend enough time consistently. Not like in desperation, like you said, like, oh, now we need to do a recruiting push. When times were good, you weren't spending enough time recruiting to have people warm so that you can let go of underperformers immediately.
Yeah.
Like, and that's such a, like, you think about the cost of an underperformer to the company, right? Because people think they're debt weight. Oh, they're debt weight. If I just focus on they're not debt weight. They're net negative, right? First of all, you're paying them a salary.
I like how you say that.
There's no such thing. Like you talked about the natural equilibrium of all things in life is never neutral. Like if you just leave things be, right? Jordan Peterson talks about this thing where it's like if you just leave a house and you leave it and don't come back for 20 years, you don't clean it, come back in 20 years and look at how the house looks, right? Because nobody paid attention to it. It's gonna have mold, it's gonna have like trees growing in it and leaves, it's gonna have bugs, all these different things because the natural equilibrium of things, they're not nice, they're miserable, right? The state of nature is a state of lawlessness and misery and poverty. And so if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do as an underperformer, it's not your debt weight, you're always net negative.
Yeah.
And it's not just because you're getting paid a wage, you're running some leads, right? So you're costing the company the opportunity to close those leads when somebody else who's more qualified could do that, right?
Yes.
You're literally throwing money in the fire when you have somebody who's not as likely to close those leads. And so you're scared to fire them because you can't replace it. Well, you're sending them out there losing the money anyway. And so it's better to not even run the leads.
Put them in a lazy boy somewhere. Man,
literally. And so I always think about it. It's like, it's that way for the company. Just like fire them. And then that holds you more accountable to finding a replacement like earlier, because what you're doing by keeping them there is you're tricking yourself into believing that I'm going to close the leads or whatever, but you're not, the numbers are going to be below.
I want to point something out. You should never replace people. You're never replacing people. You're just moving them out.
Yes.
Because if there is one thing and you should cut this part out and make it a reel if you want, but here's the thing I want everybody to understand. If you want your company to grow, you hire when you don't need them, and then you push your marketing department to feed them. Hire when you don't need them and push your marketing department to feed them.
Yeah.
If you're hiring somebody because you need to replace them, you're behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, because it's almost like putting pressure on every single part of the revenue organization to grow. That's so cool.
Now, here's the other thing: is if your organization canvases, you should never stop hiring.
I
don't care if you have 100 people,
because you're generating your own leads.
They're generating their own leads, and all you need then is just people on the boots on the street. And if you want an army, go hire an army.
Yeah.
When these people are like, how did there's like an organization out of Columbus that's all over the United States now. They grew so fast. I'm proud of these guys, Zach and Alex of Lifetime Quality.
Oh yeah.
They built an army.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did, and then they trained them and trained them and trained them. But I mean, they built an army of top performers that go out, knock doors, and do it successfully. So you have to figure out how you're going to build your organization. If you're going to build it retail, then you hire when you don't need them, and you push your marketing department to feed them. Or if you're going to have an insurance or a door knocking type culture, then go find an army.
Yeah, that's this is really helpful. I just wanted to summarize for all the sales managers listening. If you want to up your game and be in that top 15%, top 10% of people, instead of just showing up to the office and just letting life happen to you and kind of like deal with the chaos, have a plan of attack. Have your power hour really early in the morning. Set the tone. Come in early to the office and make your sales team show up to the meeting, even if they don't run appointments. Get them excited. Deal with your underperformers right after that meeting. Obviously, you should have some sort of agenda in that meeting with the underperformers. What happened yesterday? So at the end of the day, you should be reviewing what happened so that you can prepare for the meeting the next day, right? And you should see like, okay, they have an average ticket problem. If they have an average ticket problem, is it because they're discounting too early? You should have some visibility into what's happening. You bring that up in meetings. You send them out there. You do ride-alongs with them to see if they're actually adopting what they should be adopting, right? You're doing ride-alongs 30% of the time. So that means 1 or 2 days out of your week, you should be spending doing ride-alongs at least, right? If not 3. And Then you make the tough decisions. If you need to let people go, boom, you can let them go. Because you're spending 20% of your time recruiting, you're okay with letting people go because you have the bench really warm with really high talent that you're recruiting all over. Yeah. And then you're spending a lot of time after you do that in the mornings, you do ride-alongs, you come back, you're spending a lot of time looking at your numbers, 2 hours at least looking at your numbers. And then you're spending time making sure that you're meeting with your other departments, right?
Yes.
Ideal day in the life of a top performing sales manager.
So if you're a sales leader, you come in and decide if you're going to be proactive or reactive.
Yeah.
So proactive means you're going to win the day. Reactive means you're just coming in looking for fires.
Right.
So you have to determine who you're going to be.
Yeah.
On an owner, when an owner comes into work, they need to realize, are we going to be a rec league or a professional team?
Right.
Rec league, everybody gets a turn, everybody gets patted on the head and but a professional team, you got to look at these, whether it's Belichick or any of these other really good coaches, and who's on their team, who gets to be on the team, how did they get on that team?
Right.
And they're like, well, that's a NFL team. You're telling me that your company can't be an NFL team?
Yeah.
What are you? Are you the YMCA? Everybody gets to pick daisies and everybody gets a turn.
Yeah.
It's because it's one or the other. There's no in between. Just so you know.
So like some managers who are not even doing ride-alongs. Obviously, we talked about a process of how you incorporate ride-alongs into a general process as a company. To identify weaklings and try to weed them out or coach them and bring them up to speed with the right things and coaching on the inputs, not the outputs. Is there like from what you've seen for people who are not even like doing a good ride-along process yet, which is not a lot of RILLA customers, but for the people watching that are not RILLA customers, what if I'm a sales manager? I've never really done ride-alongs well. If I do them, I go out. I don't really know what I'm doing. What are the best practices of what? How do I do ride-alongs if I've never done them effectively, so that I can do the best that I can while I'm out there with the rep?
First and foremost, you're not there to audit. This isn't an audit. If it is an audit, you're going to treat it like an audit, and so is your sales rep. They're going to be over there freaking out. Am I doing good? And if your sales rep gets back in the car and they ask you, so how'd I do? They're thinking this is an audit. But if you treat it the way it's supposed to be, like we're going to go out, we're going to have fun today. We're going to tag team this thing. We're going to take the day. We're going to close everything we touch today. And then while you're there, just watch the situation, not your rep. Watch the situation, because if you're watching the situation, you're watching the world around you. You're watching the homeowner, what's the rep saying, how are they reacting? What's the homeowner saying, how's he reacting or she reacting? So you have to watch the whole situation. But if all you're doing is sitting there, and I actually had a sales manager, and they were under me. I mean, I got the phone call from the sales rep that my sales manager was sitting there with a piece of paper and standing up at the sink taking notes. That was the sales manager's last day, but that happened. It was in our Lima branch in Bathfitter. But you're there to have fun. You're there to monitor what's going on, because then you get a whole view of everything that's actually happening in that house.
So are you trying to intervene as a sales manager to save the sale, or do you let them
never
fall?
save the sale unless they freeze up and stop? They don't know where they're going. They freeze, and it's usually a very new sales rep.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them. But if they're going to sink, I'm letting them sink.
Yeah.
I'm going to let them just go completely, unless they freeze up, then I can jump in. But other than that, I'm going to let them, because you never know if they're going to rebound. You jump in too early, you don't know where they were taking that.
Right.
They were tanking, but maybe they were coming back out of it.
And then you're going back to training, not coaching, where you're showing them how awesome you are and be like, see, but they didn't get it. And you weren't there to sell, you were there to coach.
And if you're a good coach, when you come back out, calm it down. Hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
How do you think that went? Man, it was bad. I'm like, hold on. Calm down. How did it go, and what happened in that house?
Right. You have them
'cause
recap it.
You have to make sure that they know it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not firing you when we get back. I just want to know what was your take on that? I've had some that completely bombed. Like, so how did that go? Man, that was awesome. Really? That's the way you want to look. I'm like, all
Be
right.
like, I didn't see no contracts getting signed. What's your definition of awesome? What game are you playing?
But remember, you're riding in the field. You want to get a sense of the field
Right.
with them.
Right.
And not just, did you do everything the way I taught you?
Right.
They're going to tell you that. They're going to say, hey, just so you know, and they're going to give you all their excuses. Take it all in.
Right.
And then go back to the office, sit down, and then you make your notes. When they leave, you go back in the office, you pull out that key competency. You're going to put check marks next to things that they need to work on, because then you're going to send them videos that they need to work on. They're going to say, I need you to come back in right after power hour, at 8 o'clock. I need you in here about 8:30. We're going to work on some of the stuff that's on this
So there's
list.
next steps always after the ride along. It doesn't end there.
Yeah,
It's a
whether
continuous
I'm
process.
riding through RILLA or I'm riding,
There's always a next step.
Physically riding, there's an action plan, not to the point where they're being disciplined.
Right.
But here's what I noticed, and I want you to watch this video.
Right. What as a top performing sales manager, obviously, and this is great. Like when people think, there's a great book that was written by Andy Reid, who's one of the best business minds. He was one of Steve Jobs' mentors, and he wrote a book called High Output Management, where he talks about when you think about leaders, how do you measure whether you are a good leader or whether you're a bad leader? Some people say great leaders are charismatic, great leaders are held people accountable. And he said, no. The output of a leader is the output of their team. If the team is performing well, then the leader's great. If the team's performing badly, then the team's horrible. The people who win the Coaches of the Year awards are the ones who win the Super Bowl. That's it. It's very simple, right? So as a leader, as a manager, what you're trying to do is you're trying to not you be the superstar and you be the team as your superstar, right? And so if you're going out on a ride along, you're not there to save the day, right? Because what you're trying to do as a manager, you have certain actions that you can take that have really high leverage on your team and actions that have very low leverage on the team. You going out there and saving the sale, very low leverage, because that person's not going to learn that much.
Anything.
They're not going to learn that much. And so then you're not really managing, you're selling. That's not your job. You're not increasing the output of your team. You're increasing your own personal output. That doesn't matter, right?
That's right.
Because then what you want to do is from that ride along, you can't be every single time with that rep. When you're not there, you want them to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's why you let them fail that day, because letting them fail has a higher leverage on that person than you saving the sale.
That is
and so
correct.
as a manager, you're always trying to generate, you're trying to take the most amount of actions that have the highest leverage on the team. And leverage can be performed in many different ways. You do a meeting in the morning where your time can be spread through all the entire team. That's high leverage, right? Because one person, 1 hour, you're giving feedback to the entire team. One of the things we tell people to do with RILLA, we tell them to do the one for all coaching, which is the virtual ride along. You find a really good example. You tag the entire team, the entire sales team. Hey, look at how Tim did this objection handling with the price is too high, right? Everybody take a look. In one fell swoop, you have a high leverage on the entire team. Or you could have high leverage from an impact perspective. You have a 1 hour with one person, whether it's a ride along or a one-on-one meeting, and that hour is so impactful that it completely changes that person's trajectory. That's high leverage, right? Because it sticks over time. So what you're doing as a sales manager is you're trying to generate leverage from quantity or from the impact standpoint. And so when you're doing ride-alongs, you're trying to generate high leverage from that ride-along, not low leverage. When you're running a meeting, first of all, what types of meetings? We talked about the power hour. We talked about the one-on-one meetings with bottom performers. What other types of meetings are the top performing sales managers running to generate high leverage with their team?
So sales meetings. Sales meetings are, it's an art to do a good sales meeting. And it's taken me a long time to really master the art of a sales meeting. And here's the thing with sales meetings is you should not have any house cleaning in it. This color's discontinued. Guys, we need more pictures. That's an email.
Right.
And they're not listening to you anyway because it's the same thing you say every single time.
Right.
But when you bring them in, you have 2 hours. And I will say 2 hours. These 1 hour meetings are BS.
Yeah.
You're not teaching them anything in an hour. So these 2 hour meetings, you have 2 hours to affect them for 7 days.
Because it's a once a week meeting.
So I want them to think of them as these wind up toys. So you have 2 hours to just crank, put the pressure on. really give the motivation and send
then
them back
release 'em.
out.
Yeah.
And they're out there. Now you're doing your morning meetings and all that, but it's that sales meeting that truly gets them through the week.
How much time does it take to prepare a 2-hour sales meeting that's truly impactful?
I'm going to tell you, it takes 2 weeks to do a good meeting.
Yeah.
2 weeks to do a good 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And you're going to change your mind. My wife is sitting here. She knows how many times I'll change my topic throughout the week.
Because you're thinking about it constantly.
Because you're looking at the week, how things are going. This is my trend. This is what's really happening right now. And so I'm going to switch things up. I'm going to put this thing on for the following week. I'm going to put this thing into this week. And so there's a lot that goes in. But again, 80 to 90% of sales leaders, they don't know what they're going to talk about until about maybe an hour or 2 hours before that
Before the
starts.
meeting, yeah.
And they're pulling out just weird stuff and saying, okay, I'm going to print this stuff out and we're going to talk about this. No wonder it's only an hour, and I'm surprised they can make that last an hour.
Yep.
So we're going to work and we're going to go through the topic. Then we're going into role play, because there's one thing of saying, okay, the sales manager looks really good. They've taught what they're going to teach. And then everybody's going to pat the sales manager on the head and say, that's a good meeting. But nobody learned anything because no practical was ever done.
Yep.
So if I'm going to teach them, we're going to put it to play.
So in the book High Output Management, if you really are living your life as a true manager and as a true leader of people, and you are considering your output as the output of their work, you realize that meetings are the most important medium by which your work is done.
Yeah.
Your meetings where you're meeting with your team, especially if you're meeting with a lot of them, that's the highest leverage action that you can take, because you're impacting so many people at once. And it's almost like that's game time for you. You know what I mean? So everything is leading up to what you're going to be doing in the meeting, because it's the highest leverage action that you can take as a manager. And it's like, if you're a sales rep, game time is when you're in the home with the homeowner. Everything you're doing is training and preparing for this key moment when game time, and I show up with all the tools, all the preparation, all of the skill sets, right? Even though it's, you're not in the home most of the time. You're in the home maybe 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, maybe. But the rest of the time you're just training and coaching and learning and preparing for that key moment. So the way you plan the meetings is you're taking in all the information. You're super involved. You're doing all the things that we're talking about. Like you look at your numbers, you do your ride-alongs, you do recruiting, you talk to the other departments. All of this is creating opportunities for serendipity, for you to discover something new, for you to discover some key part of the process that we can fix, some key motivational insight that you can give the team because they're struggling with, whether it's a recession or people talking about inflation, because you're so deeply embedded into what's going on. That's how you prepare the meetings, because you're taking all the information and then you start creating, and you're always thinking about the meeting outline.
Yeah.
It's Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, some of the best leaders of all time. They always, when they prepared their entire companies, they would always, like Steve Jobs would literally create products like the iPhone and everything. He would start with the keynote address. He would start with, what am I going to talk about in the keynote, right? What do I want to say to the world in the keynote? And then I'm going to prepare the entire product from there, because I want to be able to do this on stage.
End in mind, yeah.
And so that's how the iPhone got created, where Steve Jobs was imagining himself on stage, and he would spend years, literally, he would work on these demos that he would do at the keynote for years. Like when you see Steve Jobs pitching the iPhone, one of the most legendary demos that you saw, that was years of him literally in his head and practicing. Walt Disney, the same thing. They spent 4 or 5 years working on Snow White. The first thing he did, he would tell the story of how he wanted the story to land to his animation people, and then he would build the animation backwards from the story. So if you are thinking as a sales manager, the sales meeting when you're going to meet with all your people, that is the thing that you're working backwards from. Like, what do I want to talk about in the sales meeting? I have an idea. It could be wrong. It could change, right? But everything I'm doing is kind of leading up to that.
Yes.
Because I'm working backwards from the output that I'm going to generate for my team, which is that meeting.
Right.
And some sales managers are not even doing a sales meeting. They're not even,
some of them shouldn't. If you've seen some of these sales meetings, some of them shouldn't be doing sales meetings. But yeah.
This is great, man. Chuck, how did you found Top Rap? We didn't get to that. How did you start this?
Well, so it was. It really is a brainchild of myself, and it's a conglomerate of folks. The actual name came from Nathan Thibodeau. Man, the names that we came up with, it was crazy, all the names. And we kept going, and he says, well, what about top rep? And it got really silent on our Zoom calls, me, Nathan.
And this was back in
Jim.
2020?
That was probably in 2020 when we were trying to figure this thing out.
Did COVID have anything to do with you guys creating this?
It really didn't.
Okay.
We just knew that somebody suggested it. I had started putting this thing together, and
Were you you were not at Able Roof at this time?
No,
What?
I was coaching.
You were coaching already on your own?
I was already coaching.
So how many years had you been spending coaching already?
I'd probably been coaching 4 or 5 years by then.
Okay. So this was right after Able Roof. You talked to Keith. You learned from him. You learned from everything, you know, and then you started coaching on your own. So companies would bring you in and be like, hey, can you coach my guys?
Yeah.
And then you were like, okay, 4 or 5 years in, you learned a lot of coaching different companies. How many companies did you coach in those 4 or 5 years?
Oh my gosh. You know, I've never really looked at how many companies I've coached. Probably in those 4 or 5 years, I'd say probably 50, 60 companies.
Holy
by
crap.
then.
Yeah. Holy
Yeah.
crap. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say one of the best things that's ever happened to me are the first 2 organizations I've been in, which is Bathfitter and Able. And within Able, that really put what I learned in Bathfitter to the test, and taking my team of Able to a whole other level that roofing's never seen before.
Right.
You know, and really putting them. And I was blessed to have the team that I had. I mean, I can name every one of them right now, and exactly. Most of them are sales leaders now around the country.
That's
some
awesome.
of the most successful sales leaders.
You always see that in some of the top organizations, like everybody comes,
Yeah.
like you create something really good that the culture that is created at that place reverberates across organizations.
Yeah.
You saw it with the Sears, the Sears home improvement guys that are now leading the charge. You see it in tech, you see the PayPal mafia, you see like all those guys. Like, it's crazy to think that Elon Musk, right, who founded SpaceX, Tesla, the Boring Company, now owns Twitter. He came out of PayPal. Peter Thiel, who founded Palantir, was the first investor in Facebook. The founders of Yelp, the founders of YouTube, the founders of LinkedIn, they all came out of the PayPal mafia because that culture was so powerful. It tends to happen at the best high-performing places. Think of the Chicago Bulls, right? So Michael Jordan, Steve Kerr, who's now the coach of the Golden State Warriors. Of course, he's going to be one of the greatest coaches because he learned from one of the greatest coaches of all time, right? So it's so cool to see that. And you probably see like, oh, wow.
You mentioned Window Nation. One of my sales reps was one of the VPs at Window Nation. He started out as a sales manager, worked his way up. Nick Purz.
Oh, wow.
And then the top implementer in EOS was one of my sales reps.
That's so cool, man. That is so
That's
cool.
Barry Barrett. You know, he is one of the most successful implementers in EOS.
And so what made you say, I'm coaching, and you're probably doing great coaching all these companies? You probably have more, you have a lot of companies under your belt in terms of coaching. What made you decide to start Top Rep as an organization?
To see how big it was getting, and both Jim and I saw it, because both me and Jim founded Top Rep, and we saw it as big as it was getting, and Jim was more going in that business coaching,
Yes.
and I was going into that sales coaching, and that's really what Top Rep is.
Yep.
So I pretty much took Top Rep, and I still talk to Jim all the time. He is one of my biggest mentors. Jim actually helped me to understand the magic behind coaching. I'm not going to say that divorce was on the line, but when it was not a good time for me when I started coaching, I thought you had to be in the office with them to coach them. And so I would be gone Monday through Friday in an organization, coaching, teaching, training, making sure that they were successful. And it wasn't until Jim came in that I realized that I could do all this through Zoom. I could have a life. And so I will
You could do virtual ride-alongs on RILLA.
Yeah. I will credit a lot of my coaching success from Jim.
Because it allowed you to scale.
Yeah,
yourself.
I was a very successful coach. The problem was I just couldn't take too many on because I was in the office. And it was nuts.
It wasn't scalable.
But Jim really helped me to understand how to do this and still have a life to
So
live.
you guys started working together, and you kind of saw that there was some magic there.
Yeah.
And out of that, you guys saw, and so Top Rep came for you as a solution to to the necessity of being able to scale what you were doing with all these different companies?
We saw this as the next level of sales. No
Right.
one's ever done it at this level.
Right.
And we didn't even know that we could get to that level, to tell you the truth. It was
I've
that
actually
first-
not been yet to an event that is as respectful of the art and science of selling as a top rep event.
And what we
don't
have
see
planned coming in, I mean, it is crazy. Some of the people that are getting involved, some of the people that are noticing us, the Cardone camp, they're like,
Oh, the 10x, the 10x people.
We didn't know it, but there was a high level person that came in and like, I've never seen anything like this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which was great.
Yeah. I know. I'm telling you, like I do a lot of shows, man, and the top rep events are something else. It's not just you go to all these trade shows, all these conferences, and it's like people sit there and they get spoken at, right? Talking about the training and like, it's like, wow, all these speakers. But man, like the level of interaction that the sales reps can generate, the owners, like literally just being able to put your salespeople to the test with some of the best in the country. That's like magic.
I know you get sick and tired of me saying this, but I take great pride in this, man. So when I first learned about RILLA, it was Greg, and I'm going to mess up his last name, so I'm not going to say it. But he owns SFY, and he heard you speak at
Stormguard Roofing. Yes, that was
and
our first customer in home
I
improvement.
get this, and he's never FaceTimed me. I'm like, I think this must be a butt dial because Greg's
Yeah,
never
yeah,
FaceTimed me.
yeah.
And just happened to be free. And and he says, you need to, and I'm like watching you speak, and I'm like, that's what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And so I'm calling you, whatever I can do to get on.
I remember you introduced me. I think one of our first calls, you introduced me from Dean from Engage, because I've noticed that about you, that you're, and also Jim. I kind of learned about Jim that he was a tech founder himself, but like you introduced me to the Roofle guys.
Yeah.
Who's literally by far one of the best startups I've met. Their growth rate is insane. I'm not going to talk about specifics, but man, I thought RILLA was crushing it. And now like I look at Roofle and they're a little bit earlier than we are, but man, they're growing so fast, super capital efficient businesses. I love these businesses that just grow, like they can scale so quickly with such few people. Not like all these other startups in like the 2010s just have to burn all this money to just get to like $1 million, right? How are you like so involved with all these tech? Like you introduced me to Engage, you introduced me to Roofle. I think I introduced you to XBuild. Did you talk to those guys?
I did,
with the automating the whole like adjusting insurance process for getting the adjusters to approve.
And we're moving forward. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. So how do you like become involved with all these tech people?
We're always trying to figure out what's next. Every time, and we'll get to it. And it's not even a day in that we succeeded in something. We're already if I succeeded with this by 9 o'clock, by noon, I'm like, all right, what's next?
What's the next thing?
What's the next thing that this industry's never seen before? I'm going to tell you that we're excited with what we just came out with. What we call it the sales simulator.
Yeah.
But it's AI. It's an AI bot that you literally are
A role playing
with.
Yeah.
We found this organization. Actually, one of my assistants found it and said, Chuck, this is it. And we talked with them, and now we're...
Wait, which company?
It's a company called Replay.
Okay, very
And
cool.
So we're in tight knit with them. Now we had to kind of hone them in, but we're really, really tight with them to say, okay, this needs to happen next.
That's awesome,
this
man.
needs to happen.
I think I've heard of them. I think we have some customers that are
Very
using
small,
them.
but
Yeah.
they're smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
No, there's a lot of there's a lot of really smart kids that are coming out. There's like this whole almost like golden age of tech and home improvement that I love to see. Like, you talk to the Jahan from XBuild. This guy used to work at Uber, right? There's Tyson from Avoca. He was at MIT. And it's like all these like really, really smart people building tech for home improvement. It's great to see. I mean, we're part of that as well, but like, man, it's such a pleasure to have you here. For all the RILLA customers, Chuck was actually the original sales coach that started doing the virtual ride-alongs on RILLA. He was the absolute first sales coach in the home improvement industry that found us and started incorporating this into his processes. So if you're in need of any kind of coaching magic in your business, if you are in need of virtual ride-alongs powered by Top Rep, please reach out to Chuck. He is, I have met with so many people who have so many good things to say about you as a person, not just as a business leader. I've met with competitors of Chuck who have great things to say about him. He's really one of the, I personally think he's one of the best people that I know, like just flat out, regardless in the industry. So Chuck, where can people learn more about you?
You can come to topreptraining.com. You can come to one of our boot camps. We have coaching. We have virtual sales management that we do.
Your Facebook page?
It's all over the Facebook page, which is the Top Rep Training Facebook page, and our group, which is absolutely free. We give away half our content.
Yeah.
You know, the best way to reel people in is to give it away.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
And for people who have not been to a Top Rep event, I'm telling you, man, like it is just the best events that we've seen when it comes to sales training. Like if you're just curious about how, you know, you can work with Chuck or power your business, just literally look at where the next Top Rep event is and just bring your entire sales team. It's like, everybody has so much fun. I have so much fun and I'm just watching, man. It's so cool. Just bring them to a Top Rep event and then like, forget everything I'm saying and just bring them there.
From when this is being recorded, the next one's going to be in Columbus.
Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
When is that?
That's August 19th and 20th.
Okay. August 19th and 20th in Columbus, Ohio. Go find out about the next Top Rep event.
Any other time you can find out on our website.
Amazing. Chuck, thank you so much for being here, man. This was so fun. I am so happy that I could host you in New York.
I mean, being 2 hours in, and I mean, this was fun.